Everyone. Obviously not an NBA props show this time. We're taking an early look at the Super Bowl. Going to have two great guests joining us. My guy Liam picks fights. He's one of my partners over in the Lab VIP, and then we're going to have his plus one, Jon Jon, coming in as well. Share some of our favorite bets, some long shot stuff. We're going to take a look at the novelty market, and really just share a bunch of information with you guys. Try answer some questions. I know LeBron's going after the all-time scoring record, so might not have a ton of people live in here, but do an early Super Bowl preview. We're going to go through position by position, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, and so forth. Just take a look, some trends, stuff to look out for. Without further ado, I'm going to bring these guys in. Got Liam and Jon Jon. How you guys doing tonight?
What's going on, Kamish? Doing well.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys jumping on so late. Jon Jon, I know you're out in the West Coast, so it's not super late for you, but Liam and I are pushing the midnight oil with this. But yeah, happy to have you guys on here, even though Jon Jon, again, you're an Eagles fan, so we'll try not to get in too many fights over the next hour or however long we end up on here. But yeah, man, let's.
I hope you like the bird game swag that I got going on in the background here.
I absolutely do not. I absolutely do not, because I'm still sore about you guys beating my guy Tom a couple years ago when he was with the Patriots. But
well, you've beaten us once before, so it was only right to even the score.
Not enough. But yeah, guys, let's just jump right in. Obviously Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, State Farm boy, taking on Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles at State Farm Stadium out there in Glendale, Arizona. Have had some really interesting line movement on this game. We're looking at it right now. The Chiefs are plus 1.5. Eagles obviously flipped on that, minus 1.5. Eagles are minus 122 on the money line. Totals at over under 50.5 right now. I guess we can start there, and then we'll dive into the individual player prop markets. We'll take a look at the prize pick stuff, the DFS, and then if we have anybody jumping in to answer any questions. But Liam, why don't we go to you first? I know you have some pretty strong opinions on this game. Give us a little bit of background on the market. I know that's more your strength, and then just your general thoughts, side or total or both in the spot.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, just want to say hello, everybody. Thank you guys all for being here. I think we're going to have a great conversation because we assembled a pretty sharp panel here tonight, and I'm the least sharp person on this panel. So I want you guys to understand that off the rip. I know a lot about fighting. I'm very good at doing my research. I come in prepared. That being said, I'm not going to be the preeminent football expert on this panel, right? So let's start with that. Secondly, let's talk about the fact that this is being played in Arizona, State Farm Stadium, and you literally have the head coach of one team and the star player featured on the commercials for the same brand that's hosting the Super Bowl. These are things I don't ignore. I think about that fact. I think about the fact that it seems like we have a public side that's also a sharp side. And what I mean by that is the sharps and the public tend to agree on this game. The Eagles should win. The Eagles should win comfortably. They should have not opened the underdog. They should have opened the favorite. But then what I noticed was the movement from early on has told me that the bookmaker thinks Kansas City might be the sharp side here. What do I mean by that? Number one, they have been getting disproportionate action on the Eagles. They haven't moved to that key number of 3. They're keeping it below that. They're keeping it in most cases under 2 as well. So they're not giving you much value, much equity with Kansas City on the point spread. They want this to be a game where you're booking one team to win. So basically what they've gotten is more action on the Eagles on the spread. They've gotten more action on the Eagles on the money line as well. During the game, while the game was still rolling, Kansas City, I'm talking about still playing the Bengals. It's up in the air whether or not Kansas City is going to make it to this game. They were being booked Kansas City -2 at the Eagles on Bet Online, one of the sharpest global outfits for betting on sports during the game. After the game, what happened? The line completely changes. Even in Vegas, right? It wasn't just offshores. It wasn't just outside the normal domestic market. Domestic markets in Las Vegas, some of the sharpest in the world, open -2.5 on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's completely flipped to +2.5. So that's not to say that that isn't a sign of strength. They're respecting the money that's coming on the Eagles. But when you're talking about multiple hundreds of 10x figures on the Eagles side, and it's not moving the money line. You're talking about MGM reported $1 million wager on the Eagles at -125, and they were holding -125. Those are the kind of things that make me a little bit skeptical. Add to that the fact that I had done my research prior to the championship weekend, and the Chiefs winning would be a great outcome for the sports book, plain and simple. Like the Chiefs winning from a futures market standpoint, they've booked themselves into a good situation. Most people didn't think that the Chiefs were going to emerge from the AFC. They thought it was going to be the Buffalo Bills. And I'm talking about earlier in the season. So when you think about that, you think about the fact that the sportsbook's done great. They already got two of their biggest threats, their biggest liabilities out, the 49ers, unfortunately, because that was a sharp side. You had a plus 600 commish. But then they get one of their biggest liabilities out from the NFC. I think that the Eagles were the better outcome for them from the NFC. Now you're talking about who's the best outcome from the AFC. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been a small number all year. They've had a lot of respect, but they've been the team that's kind of the, second in command. They haven't been covering the spread. They haven't been looking like a dominant force all year. The Eagles, they've been looking more like that dominant force. So for me, from a contrarian standpoint, I'm a contrarian. I'm a guy that likes underdogs. I'm a guy that looks to get on the other side of the fence. And in this case, I think that the Sharps and the public are going to be on the Eagles. I'm going to have to ride with Vegas and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Surprise, surprise. Liam taking the contrarian approach. I've seen so many Sharps on the Eagles in this spot. And, of course, Liam's going the direct opposite direction. Jon, I know you got the Eagles memorabilia behind you. Are you betting with your heart in this spot? Give me your thoughts on the game.
I mean, I'm surprised people think that I would be a homer and I would give I'd be unable to do an unbiased breakdown. But to your surprise, just kidding. I'm on the Eagles. I'm pretty high on the Eagles this year, but I think we could all agree these are the two best teams. I'm aware of the fact that the Eagles have never beaten Andy Reid. I'm also aware.
To be fair, Andy Reid was with Philadelphia for a long time. So, I mean, that cut down on the opportunities quite a bit.
Yeah, just with the injuries, etc. The Eagles are built for this. We're ready to go, and I'm excited.
So just a little bit of background on the game. Like how did these two teams get here? Kansas City got off to a little bit of a slow start. Everybody was panicking after the Tyreek Hill situation. Is Patrick Mahomes going to be able to be an elite quarterback without his premier wide receiver out wide? They've been just fine. Patrick Mahomes, presumptive MVP. I'm sure we'll get that news later this week.
Just fine. Over what was that? 5,000 passing yards. My man can't stop.
Led the league in passing yards, 5,250 yards. Number one in passing touchdowns of 41. QBR 77.5. Just elite, top to bottom. The Chiefs want to have entering play on Sunday. They will have won 12 of their last 13 games. The one game they lost in that span was on the road to the Cincinnati Bengals. Underrated part of that loss was the fact that their starting left guard, Joe Thuney, was not in the lineup in that game, created some big issues on the offensive line. So, I mean, the games that Thuney's been in the lineup, the Chiefs have not lost since they lost to the Bills at home 24-20 early in the season. We saw in the postseason that the Chiefs played really well against Jacksonville. Obviously, just a team that wasn't ready for that moment, right? Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, really good job for them. Kudos to them for getting to that point, but definitely not a Super Bowl contender at this point in that franchise's ascension to the top. They'll be back for sure. And then, of course, last week, well, I guess almost 2 weeks ago at this point, as Liam mentioned, they beat the Bengals in a pretty thrilling game. Mahomes not 100%, but getting there, right? Had a week off between the injury and the Jacksonville game and then the AFC Championship, and then he's going to have about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. You look at the Eagles, a little bit banged up as well. Jalen Hurts suffered a shoulder injury late in the season, forced him to miss a couple of games. Since he's gotten back, he's struggled to throw the ball deep. He's been a little bit more inaccurate than we saw earlier in the season. Hasn't really mattered because he played Danny Dink and Duck in the divisional round, and the Eagles ran over the Giants, and then they ended up beating a 4-string quarterback in the NFC Championship after, of course, Brock Purdy went down early in the game and then had to re-enter because Josh Johnson came in and left early with an injury. So the Eagles, I mean, they've been elite. Like just some historic stats, especially the pass rush. They led the NFL this year in sacks per pass attempt at over 12%. No other team in the NFL was even at 10%. Pressure rate, they've been fantastic as well. They were only behind the Dallas Cowboys in pressure rate. Again, two good pass blocking offensive lines with the Eagles and the Chiefs.
What was it? 4 D linemen on the Eagles with 11 plus sacks.
Yep, first time in NFL history that we've seen that.
2 wide receivers with 1,000+ yards. First time since Demaryius Thomas, RIP, and Emmanuel Sanders, which is a very elite combo right there. Jalen Hurts with record-setting 15 rushing touchdowns. I'm excited for this game.
Two good teams. Like you said, I think undeniably these two teams have earned their trip here. I know there's been a lot of people dogging the Eagles for having a weak strength of schedule, but when you don't have to play one of the best teams in the league because you are one of the best teams in the league, that removes some of the opportunities there as well. And frankly, they've just bulldozed pretty much everybody they've played. I do not anticipate them getting exposed in any fashion against the Chiefs. I'm yet to make a decision on this game personally. I think there's some very, very strong arguments for the Eagles. I think there's some very, very strong arguments for the Chiefs in this spot. Warren Sharp had a great stat prior to the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs defense this season, when they're able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, they have the number 1 EPA defensively in football. When they're unable to get pressure on the opposing quarterback, dead last 32nd in EPA on the defensive side of the ball. Facing an Eagles team that finished number 1 in the league in pass blocking, looking at Pro Football Focus's grading system, they might not be able to get a ton of pressure on Jalen Hurts. That the secondary is definitely exploitable. The main question, again, being Hurts and his accuracy, especially down the field, which we've seen him not willing to take those shots. And when he has been willing to take those shots since he came back, we've seen him overthrow some receivers, has not been super on point. So I'm not 100% there. I do think I will be on a side in this game by the time Sunday gets here. Right now, I do lean the Eagles because they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. I don't think Kansas City is going to be able to get after Hurts a whole lot. The Chiefs have struggled a little bit against mobile quarterbacks this year. So right now my lean is towards the Eagles. I'm not 100% sold either way on the total either, but I will have some free articles and stuff on my Twitter later this week breaking down this game in more depth.
Now, Kamish, from an EV perspective, if you don't mind, before we move on to some other aspects of the game, if you were somebody that was going to back the Eagles, right, and you're looking at an opportunity to either lay, and I'll pull up the best available odds right now, but basically you're looking at around plus 105, plus 108, best available if you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs money line. If you're looking at the comeback on Philadelphia, best you're going to do is about minus 120. You can find minus 125s and minus 130s out there. Now, if you look at the point spread market, you could find, as low as -1, minus 110 on the Eagles. From an EV perspective, somebody that's betting on these games constantly throughout the year, would you be looking at the spread at -1? Would you be looking to avoid the spread entirely and just pay a little bit extra chalk? How do you approach that as a sharp better?
I think I might be a little bit of an outlier in this thought process, but especially betting on a game like the Super Bowl, these are two of the best teams in the league. I bet the money line, right? Teams aren't playing to win the game by 2. Like, obviously, they come out and they try to win by as many points as they can. They don't want to sweat if they don't have to, but you play to win the game, and you only have to win the game by 1 to go home with the Lombardi Trophy. And I really hold that to be true in a lot of sports. If you have playable juice, like if it's in that minus 120 range, why mess around with the spread, right? We've seen too many NBA games end with a 1-point margin of victory. I saw a bunch of people on the Lakers minus 1.5 the other night, and I think they beat the Pacers 112, 111, so they won by 1. Take the extra 10 points on the juice, especially if you're betting significant.
Those guys in Vegas are good guessers. I say it every week.
So to piggyback that point, I want to say that I've heard some takes on taking the last touchdown, one of the defenses or a defense. But just as you said, I think even if there was a turnover on the last play, I believe they would just go down rather than try to score a touchdown. So I'd be wary of that one. Shout out Bill Simmons. I don't know about that. That would have to be a little bit bigger odds for me personally, but yeah, that's my take.
Sweet. Well,
love it. Did we have any thoughts on the total, gentlemen? Because if you guys don't, I do have some thoughts on the total.
Yeah, give us what you got, Liam, because I'm still undecided. Right now I do lean with the under because we can get to that in a minute. Give us your thoughts and then I'll wrap us up and take us to the player props after this.
Okay, I'll have to pull it up, but I believe that we opened up this game around the 49.5 number. It certainly was at 49.5 around the night when people first started betting into this market.
Yeah, looks like
I know for sure. Yeah, but what happened is it's actually moved like all over the place. So I believe it got as high as 52 and 53, and some people started buying unders. Like they started, aggressively hitting the under because it moved several points off the opener, right? Again, we talked about Vegas. You never met a bookmaker with a part-time job in Las Vegas. They are very good at what they do. So when they open the game 49 and a half, you think to yourself, man, maybe this is an overreaction to have this bet all the way up to 53. But now you look at Vegas across the board, 51s. They are not holding a 50. They are not holding a 49 and a half. The lowest I saw is at the Mirage, 50.5. So I think that sharp money was on the over 49 and a half, plain and simple. I think that what's going to happen is whether it's sharp or not, the bookmaker is going to end up needing the under almost every time in a game like the Super Bowl. You listen to any sportsbook director, they'll tell you the same thing. What do you think? John Q. Public is going to go fucking bet the under? It's not happening. So unless there is really sharp money that comes in on the unders, the sportsbook's always going to need them, right? They're going to get hit with the over from people that are potentially sharp, but they're also going to get hit by every public bettor that comes in that wants to bet the total. They're going to want to bet the over. So I think from an entertainment standpoint, from the fact that it's the Super Bowl, from the fact that the number has moved corresponding with the early volume, I think that this is probably a game that trends towards the over. Does that mean it's going to land 55 or 58 or that's a lot harder to say, but over 49.5, I think that was sharp for sure. So I think that if the number comes back to 49 and a half, I will be taking the over. That was my thoughts on the total. I'm curious to hear what makes you lean towards the under, Kamish, because that for me is always a confirmation. If me and Kamish both like the same thing, I'm firing. But in this case, we're meeting a little bit of resistance on the Super Bowl because he likes, he's leaning, let's say, towards the Eagles and maybe the under. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs and the over. So we can't all get along every time, but I'm curious what makes you lean the other way for the total here.
Yeah, the AFC Championship was a lot of fun because Liam came to me early in the week and was like, it's got to be the Chiefs, right? And I was like, of course it's the Chiefs. And then we both sunk our money into the Chiefs and got a little hairy there at the end, but ended up working out. I think it's not so much that I lean – I'm not going to bet the total pregame here because I do think Kansas City struggles defensively when they're unable to get pressure could open the floodgates for an Eagles team that can not only run all over you, but then all of a sudden you can't stop Hurts through the air, whether it's through the short passing game or if he's able to connect with Brown or Smith or Watkins via deep balls. Then all of a sudden the floodgates are open. We also have a ref crew led by Carl Jeffers who calls a ton of defensive pass interferences. We could see 50-yard gains that are not even completed passes. So I'm not eager to bet the under in this spot. The reason that I don't want to bet the over at the current number is because we've just seen it historically in the Super Bowl. It's an unusual game, right? We've heard a ton of comments from people, from players over the previous seasons of it didn't feel like a football game, right? You get there's so much media obligations that you have to do. There's all the pregame rituals. There's just tons of stuff going on that make it so you can't do your pregame routine the way that you can during the regular season and even through the earlier rounds of the postseason. What ends up happening is we typically see a slower start to the game. So I do think there's going to be an opportunity to maybe cross a couple of key numbers on the total if these teams get off to a slow start. Especially, you have Patrick Mahomes, probably not at 100% healthy. Andy Reid confirmed as much earlier today, talking to the media in his press conference. Jalen Hurts has said repeatedly that he's not 100% healthy. We've seen that on the field with these inaccurate balls downfield. So I think these teams could get off to a little bit of a slow start, especially if they come out and try to run the ball, right? Even if Philly gets out there and they score on their opening drive, that might eat up 7 or 8 minutes. I don't think you're going to see a 14-point or 20-point opening quarter. So I think that line might come down under 49 or under 47 potentially, at which point I think there's better value to grab. And I say this as someone who's not really a live bettor. I just think this is a very sharp total. And in a game where you might need 1 or 2 points to be the differentiator, and you're talking about it from a market perspective as well, Liam, from the bookmaker perspective, if you can get over 47 or over 46 and a half, something like that, I'd be much more willing to bite in that situation rather than taking the over 49 and a half at the beginning, because 49 is a key number and 47 is a key number. And even 48, we see a fair amount. So if I can cross any of those numbers early in the game, then I'd be more willing to take that number at that point.
And for the people less familiar, key number just meaning a number that it lands on a lot in the NFL, a number where, you're often seeing game scores come down to these numbers. And so I think that that's a great point. And I think that that's a great way to view it. That also tells us that on a game like this, game script could be everything. If you're looking at first quarter totals, first half totals, maybe you look towards the under. Maybe people are aggressive on those markets where, Kamish is saying, I think it might be a little bit of a slower start, but then the floodgates could open up as the game goes on. So these are the kind of things where maybe with more specificity, you could find a number that is better EV. So I think that that's a good point. But with that being said, what do you say we move on to the quarterback markets?
Yeah, definitely. So again, we have two quarterbacks that have been sensational this year. We already talked about Mahomes, presumptive league MVP, led the league in pretty much every important passing metric. And then we have Jalen Hurts, a little banged up coming into this. Jon, why don't we go to you first because we haven't heard from you in a minute. What do we got? Are we big on Jalen Hurts in this game? Are you hedging emotionally or even objectively with some Mahomes props in this situation? Let us know what you got.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about Mahomes' ankle, definitely, and just that offense in general. They do have the younger Kelsey brother, and he's incredible. He's playing super well this playoffs for sure. But even saying that, their pass defense, I'm worried about, ranked 28th. Run defense 15th. I just feel like it's irresponsible for me to advise backing any Chiefs players, or especially because they just haven't been together as a unit. And I imagine this week was spent recovering rather than, getting reps with the first team. Yeah, I'm pretty confident in Hurts. He's a record-setting 15 rushing touchdowns, so I'm pretty confident in him and this organization to get it done.
Yeah, one quick point on because you mentioned the lack of continuity this week with the Chiefs just having to recover. McCole Hardman on injured reserve, not going to play. Juju Smith-Schuster did not practice at all last week, returned in a limited capacity the last couple of days. Same thing with Kadarius Toney, didn't practice at all last week, back in a limited capacity today. Travis Kelce is definitely the number one option in that offense, but they are a little bit thin at the receiver position, and especially going against an Eagles defense that has no shortage of talent in the secondary with Darius Slay and with James Bradbury and some of those guys. That kind of stuff you would imagine matters a little bit, even having an entire season together at this point. But yeah, I mean, no disagreements from me whatsoever. Liam, what are your thoughts? Or go ahead, Jon.
I was going to say that I do acknowledge that I think Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. I just think that there's so much disrespect towards Hurts that there isn't really an accurate, evaluation of his skill. Just 2 games ago, I felt like the way they were describing Daniel Jones, your boy Donnie Dimes.
17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Never forget. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was outlandish just because, like, they were talking about his rushing upside, his accuracy, his comparison to Josh Allen, and I just really think that that's way closer to Jalen Hurts, and I really think you guys are all going to be believers come this Sunday. Sorry, and continue, Liam. Thank you.
Liam, are you a believer?
Well, here's what I'll say. I think that from a quarterback's perspective, I mean, there's definitely some believers in the Jalen Hurts side. You just look at the DraftKings splits for the MVP player props. They've got 25% of the handle on Patrick Mahomes plus 125, 22% of the handle on Jalen Hurts plus 120, and that's on about 15% of tickets for both athletes. So basically 30% of the tickets are coming in saying the quarterback's going to get it done, which we know why to expect that. Quarterbacks most often win the MVP award. But then on top of that, it's pretty split, right? Just like we see, closer to 50-50 action on the money line, closer to a 50-50 line, a little bit slight favor to the Eagles. It's kind of the opposite on this MVP market. And that's from an EV perspective, because people are looking and saying, wow, if the Chiefs win this game, what is the likelihood that the Chiefs win and Patrick Mahomes doesn't win the MVP award? Probably not very high. So people are saying I could get plus 105 on the money line for the Chiefs. I could get plus 125 on Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP. Maybe I just go ahead and shortcut it, take Patrick Mahomes to get the MVP. So I think that's why he's got a little bit more in terms of handle as well as ticket share. I think that you guys will talk about later some of the other MVP candidates that could come from the Eagles and why maybe that makes Jalen Hurts slightly less of the lock MVP candidate if his team wins. Whereas Mahomes, it would be hard to envision another Chiefs player having as many opportunities. So I think that's one important thing to note off the top. That being said, though, I think there's a couple interesting notes here from a quarterback's perspective to run through briefly. A lot of people are betting on these guys to throw interceptions. This is the biggest game of the year, big pressure situation, but we're talking about like 90% of the concerns on, or 90% of the handle on both guys to go over half an interception. I think one of those guys is not going to throw one in all likelihood. So could be the kind of game where you see a weird fumble, you see something like that. We even saw that last week. What the hell happened with Patrick Mahomes when he threw the ball in the air, let it go, turned around, like did a little dance? I was like, Patrick, you're going to lose your starting job if you do that. But either way, right? I look at this kind of situation and I say to myself, Patrick Mahomes probably going to need to have a great game to win this game. You can get over 2.5 touchdowns on the touchdown passing leader, on the guy who's throwing for more yards than anybody else. I know he's a little bit banged up, a little bit injured. We saw last week he was still making plays. He was still being creative. He was still taking risks with the football. He is still a man that's going to go after it. So for me, I'm looking at overs on Patrick Mahomes props as some of my favorite plays on the Super Bowl. I think that Patrick Mahomes anytime touchdown plus 550 could represent value in over 2.5 touchdowns plus 180 on Bet Rivers. It's an anomalous number. Don't think it will last. I think that's probably a good spot as well.
All good stuff, Liam. Real quick, just to give some historical information, last 21 Super Bowls, a quarterback has won Super Bowl MVP 13 times, so that's 62%. Wide receivers earned the honors 5 times, and a defensive player has won the award 3 times in that span. I do agree with you. If you are betting the Chiefs, you should be betting Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP. The narrative is there, right? He's the hero on the one leg. But I think to your point too, it's very hard to envision the Chiefs somehow pulling an upset in this situation if Mahomes does not have an insane game. I mean, like it's going to have to be Mahomes with 3 touchdowns and 300 yards passing, something like that, or it's going to have to be some craziness with Jalen Hurts turning the ball over, Chiefs having like a pick six or picking up a fumble or something like that. And I do not see that being the case. Philadelphia has been rather conservative with Jalen Hurts. He's also had the most time of any quarterback in the league in the pocket this year. It's really helped his decision-making. Last year, Hurts ranked 22nd among qualified quarterbacks in turnover-worthy play percentage. According to Pro Football Focus, it was at 3.9%. He cut that in half in 2022, all the way down to 1.9%. We saw a lot better decision-making from him with the football in his hands. Again, it's a Super Bowl. It does the pressure get to him. That's not really something that I can tell you. I don't know Jalen Hurts. I'm not in the room with him. I don't know how that guy responds. But he has been cool, calm, and collected in every press conference all season, right? Like he doesn't strike me as someone who's going to get in the big game and start perspiring all over and not be able to grip a football. So I think the metrics here say Jalen Hurts is not going to throw 3 interceptions and cost the team the game. That being said, I think Patrick Mahomes will have to go out and win the game. But to get to Evan's point in the comments here, concerns with the Chiefs not being at 100%. If you do go look at the end of that game in the AFC Championship against the Cincinnati Bengals, after the Chiefs scored that touchdown to go 20-13, they ran 6 plays for 14 yards, fumbled, 8 plays, 18 yards, punted, 7 plays, 49 yards, punted, and then thank God for a nice kick return that set up the Chiefs with an opportunity to win that game in regulation, and then Mahomes, of course, getting pushed after going out of bounds with another 15 yards there, and they kicked the game-winning field goal. But the offense did struggle down the stretch, and what we saw too, and Liam and I were texting and calling each other back and forth during that game because we both had a decent amount of money on the Chiefs. And
it was mostly me. You could blame me. Don't worry.
And Liam's telling me, like, do I cash out? What's happening? And I told him, I said, in the first half, Patrick Mahomes looked very fluid, right? You couldn't tell that he had any sort of lower half injury. He was moving very well, but he did roll out to his left, or I believe it was early in that second half. And you could tell from that point on in the game, his mobility suffered a little bit. He just wasn't quite as crisp. And then, of course, you have the receivers leaving the game in the second half. The fact that none of them practiced for a whole week in any capacity, a little bit concerning to me. I don't know. I'm like, we've seen his touchdown yardage start to creep up a little bit throughout the week. It's as high right now as 294 yards, 294 and a half at MGM, 292 and a half at FanDuel. PointsBet is still hanging at 285 and a half because they don't even have a full-time staff for the Super Bowl, apparently. But yeah,
because they won't let people like me come and scalp them for everything that they're worth.
Yeah, but it is a little bit concerning. So to answer your question, Evan, it's a good question. we don't have that guy, right? And the Eagles have been very tough on tight ends this year. So you do have a situation where if you're able to lock down Travis Kelce, what receiver are you going to have on the outside in this spot? You're going to have MVS. You can have a guy like Sky Moore, who's primarily a special teamer. You're going to have where does that explosiveness come from, especially against a very talented secondary, like we mentioned with Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox in the slot. So I think it's an uphill battle for the Chiefs, no doubt. The one thing in this game, Prize Picks, if you are on Prize Picks, I'm not personally, but I know Liam is, and I think Jon Jon is as well. They are giving out essentially a free square on Mahomes to have over a half of a passing yard. I think that's I think even you guys are on different sides.
Yeah, I was going to say, even my Eagles fans, I think, have to come around.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks in this situation. Again, like on my Twitter, I'll have a full quarterback breakdown later in the week. I'll post an article probably with Fantasy Labs. But, yeah, I don't have anything official as of yet. But Jon Jon, Liam, do you guys have any like best bets on the quarterback or anything you want to give before we move on to the running backs?
Yeah. I just want to mention for those DFS people, specifically DK, 3 of the last 4 years, one quarterback was featured in the winning lineup. So, and with that one exception, there were no quarterbacks in that lineup. So I'd be aware of picking Hurts and Mahomes for your DK lineup, and it should be an interesting choice on that one. You have to lean Hurts, I feel like. Yeah, I'm sure everyone was thinking of putting at least one of them in their captain spot. So it's very interesting.
I'm going Hurts personally. I got one DFS lineup, and I'm putting Hurts in the MVP spot. I'm going to ride or die with him. Liam, what do you got on the quarterbacks, and then we'll move on to the running backs.
Yeah, just Patrick Mahomes anytime plus 550. Think that's mispriced. I think that he's going to have opportunities in the goal situations, and I think it's the Super Bowl, so he's going to sell out. It doesn't matter how hurt he is; he's going to go for it. So I like that, and I like over 2.5 passing touchdowns plus 180 on Bet Rivers.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Oh, did I? And also Mahomes 2 interceptions plus 550.
Plus 550, 2 picks for Patrick Mahomes.
I mean,
for what it's worth, for what it's worth, the Eagles did rank 6th as a defense during the regular season in interception rate at over 3%. So Mahomes did a really good job taking care of the football during the regular season. He had 12 picks, and especially down the stretch. I mean, he had no picks in either of the first 2 postseason games, only 1 pick in his last 4 regular season games. But he did have 3 against Denver, and he did have 2 earlier in the season against Buffalo. So facing a good defense.
Those are 2 good defenses. Yeah. His last 10 games have been fairly soft on the defensive / coaching fronts. I also, I mean, Mahomes, he has a Superman complex where he knows how much responsibility is on his shoulders to get this win. And I think to a fault, sometimes he tries to, play irrationally and force things. And I think at that value, especially at you could get a halftime, there's many scenarios where you could get a free interception. And I think at that price, it's a must bet personally.
It'll be something to watch. If it happens, Jon Jon said it first. But guys, let's move on to the running backs. We really don't have a Derrick Henry in this game. We don't have a prime Adrian Peterson. We have Isaiah Pacheco. We have Miles Sanders. We have Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, and I mean potentially Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming back for this game. So I mean, talk to me, guys. The Eagles have been abysmal defending the run pretty much all season. They finished the regular season ranked 23rd in rush EPA. The Chiefs, a little bit better, but still far from a lead against the run. They finished the regular season 16th against the run. They showed some improvement down the stretch. Liam, let's go to you first. What are you looking at running back wise? Is everything in line with the Chiefs in this? Tell us what you're looking at in this market.
I think that, from a promo crazy bet type of standpoint, I believe that FanDuel had a promo that was opened. Any 4 rushing touchdowns for the Eagles, I think it was 14-1. That's kind of a ridiculous number. I know that Jalen Hurts might end up throwing for some touchdowns that could end up cutting into that number. But just in terms of the fact that Jalen Hurts could run for touchdowns himself, they have a very diverse backfield. It kind of covers, it's basically like betting on a bunch of them to get touchdowns in any kind of combination. And I think when you have a Jalen Hurts, when you have Miles Sanders, when you have Kenneth Gainwell, when you have Boston Scott, it's a lot of guys that can go for touchdowns. I think they did this last week. So it's not to say that it's, something I would put a large sum of money on, but just something that caught my attention among those menus of longer shot props. That was one of them. But outside of that, I thought that Isaiah Pacheco first touchdown plus 900 caught my attention. Sharper markets, keeping that at a much lower number. I think that in terms of receiving threats for Kansas City, they're a bit diminished. Pacheco had an above average receiving game last week, I think, as a result of that. He's a guy that's going to be getting opportunities, I believe, when they're in the red zone. And, when you have somebody coming back off injury, it's kind of hard to trust them, in my opinion, in a big spot in the Super Bowl. Pacheco's been producing for them. I think that he's going to get a lot of those looks in critical situations. He's only plus 140, best available to get an anytime touchdown. So to see him at plus 900 for the first touchdown, it's a little bit wide for me. I like that spot. I think plus 140 on the anytime is also valuable for the same reasons.
Awesome. Great info. Jon, where's your head at with the running backs?
Yeah,
Especially, Philly better than a lot of people being a diehard fan. I mean, what are you expecting out of this motley crew with Sanders and Gainwell and Scott?
Yeah, both teams have quite the committee, quite frankly, with Clyde Edwards somehow coming back from injury, reserve out of nowhere. Some fun props that I took would be most rushing yards. Boston Scott 25-1. For that thought, I pictured an Eagle player winning that prop to have the most rushing yards, and I think just based off snap and snap counts and attempts alone, it's a good play.
And real quick, on the snap counts. I know, like, both of these last couple of weeks we've been in blowout game scripts, right? So is that going to translate to the Super Bowl? I'm not 100% sure, but in the conference championship, Gainwell actually had the most snaps out of any of these three running backs. And then in the divisional game against the Giants, Sanders had 20, Gainwell had 13, and Scott had 10. So you're very on point with saying that's a true committee. There's no running back going out there and handling 90% of the workload. If any one of these guys breaks off for a significant gain at any point, that could be the difference in that.
Exactly. I think coaches and the quarterbacks themselves are going to be, trusting who they know won't make a mistake. And if Sanders happens to fumble or do his usual east-west running, it could lead an opportunity for Scott to fill that role. And I think his role as a high IQ and pass blocker, as well as just being a quick running back, I think it's a sneaky play. And like you said, he is capable of breaking one off. So if it's a blowout, then he'll definitely get some PT. But seeing that he has 4 touchdowns is reassuring, because that's, the most important situation. So if they're trusting him there, it's good news all around. So he'll get his chances and get ready for some old-fashioned smash mouth football. And for DK specifically, I'll be taking him at 3K, and I think he's a solid target. And then I also have him at Prize Picks for over 7.5 rushing yards, which has hit 6 out of the last 7 games. So I think there's some good plays for running backs. And an honorable mention would be Pacheco over 12.5 receiving yards for Prize Picks. That's just a good number. He's been balling, and
I believe he went over 50 last week in that game. And again, who are they getting back from a receiving standpoint? Not very many people, so I don't see why he wouldn't get over that 12.5 number. I think that's a great shout.
Yep, you did have 59 last week against won the AFC Championship against Cincinnati. He had 18, 32, 23, 16, and 17 earlier in the season as well. So has been competitive at that number, especially later in the season. And as you guys mentioned, with some of the wide receiver injuries, Philly has not been truly elite against opposing running backs either. So out of the backfield. So we'll see what happens there. Both guys like Pacheco in this spot. I wouldn't talk anyone off of Pacheco either. I think the biggest question with the running backs on the KC side is going to be someone's got to block this elite Philadelphia pass rush, right? Especially with a quarterback that is not at 100% mobility. And I mean, we saw Andy Reid literally say that today, that Mahomes is not going to be 100% on Sunday. Who is going to pass block? We've seen the Chiefs leave some more, whether it's McKinnon or whether it's Pacheco in their 2-pass block since Mahomes got hurt. So I think that's the only major risk here. But again, Pacheco had 59 receiving yards last week. So he needs, 12.5 on prize picks this week. I think that's a worthwhile risk if you're looking for a running back to target in the KC backfield. Anything else from you
Promo
guys?
code Liam, they'll deposit match you 100% up to $100.
There you go. That's basically a free bet at that point you could take on Pacheco.
I don't know why.
Exactly, and blame it on me if it doesn't work, okay?
Yeah. His inexperience is one thing to note, and it's just with Hilaire, I don't know. It's such a crowded backfield, and it's hard to say who's going to be losing snaps with him coming back from injury. And I really think it's all about riding the hot hand for the Super Bowl. And McKinnon just seems his receiving prop is actually pretty interesting. I believe it's over 3.5 at plus 120. I mean, we'll see how many.
It's like one catch. It's like one catch and don't go for a loss. Like,
I mean, I think he can get receptions, and I think due to that O-line, it's going to be a lot of drop passes from Mahomes. So expect everyone to get some shots with the ball there. And in terms of Sanders, I'm trying to fade him based off just recency bias alone. His 2 touchdowns were pretty much just due to Hurts and how threatening that RPO can be, and just freezing Fred Warner up. But hopefully him and Gainwell kind of cancel each other out, and Boston Scott can get in a red zone. Something along those lines.
Boston Scott to have the most rushing yards. So we got Mahomes from Jon Jon to throw 2 picks at plus 550, and we got another long shot one here with Scott to have the most rushing yards in the game at 25-1. So needless to say, if one of those 2 cashes, you'll be having a good night. But
yes, sir.
Okay, let's move over to the wide receiver market, because especially in the Super Bowl, this is one of the more interesting positions to look at. As we mentioned closer to the top of the show, last 21 Super Bowls, quarterbacks have predominantly won Super Bowl MVP. We've had 13 of the last 21 have gone to quarterbacks in that spot. But if there is somebody that can take that award away from a Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, it could be a receiver. They've won it 5 times in the last 21 years. It's about 24% of the time. We have some legitimate candidates in this spot with A.J. Brown, with Devonta Smith. On the Chiefs side, not so much, but we're looking at the injuries again.
Not so much.
We mentioned with Tony and Schuster and Hardman already being out, they're a little bit depleted. But especially on the Eagles side, with Jalen Hurts doesn't throw for 400 yards all that often. He doesn't throw for 3 touchdowns all that often. So there is an opportunity here for an Eagles receiver to possibly unseat Hurts on the podium after the game if they do walk away as a winner. So Jon, let's go to you first, man. Like, give us your thoughts on your Eagles. If one of these receivers is going to break loose and steal the award from Hurts, or if you expect one of these guys to have a big night, who is that? And then, of course, if you have any bets that you've already taken or things that you recommend to people, let us know what you got.
I mean, I definitely would recommend picking at least one, either Devontae or AJ. I mean, their DK prices are very similar. I think it's a 600 difference. So I'm pretty. I mean, pick your choice. Devontae might have more one-on-one situations, so I think there's value there. I'm on his over 60.5 yards, which has hit 6 out of the last 7 games, I might add. And but AJ, it'd be a shame to watch him get like a 70-yard touchdown where it was all run after catch, and he is due, so it's a little tempting. I'm also on a Quez Watkins touchdown plus 750. I also have him at first touchdown 44-1, and another wide receiver would be Pascal 75-1 for the first touchdown. Another prop I have would be first reception for Justin Watson 50-1. And let me see what else I got for you guys. His DK price is also pretty good at 2K, but Quez is a very interesting play. As you guys know, I'm pretty high on him, and he's a frequent member to my bets. So I'm expecting a go big or go home reward here.
That was going to be my question for you. Is Watkins has done absolutely nothing so far in the postseason. His snap counts have been way down, and of course, they've won 2 games by over 60 points combined against the Giants and against the 49ers, 2 teams that were either depleted or just didn't match up well with the Eagles. Do those snap counts concern you, or like as someone who obviously follows the Eagles probably a little bit closer than just a fan of like the National Football League in general, what makes you confident that maybe Quez gets back? He gets a look in this spot after being totally ghosted 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to try and replicate a similar defensive scheme as the 49ers did, and try to keep deep coverage. So I kind of lean Smith here, Devontae in this scenario, because I think they were going to double team AJ, or at least I would personally. Just he's a monster. So I'm expecting Devontae to have a big game, and as you guys know, he's not afraid of the big game, and he's really been balling. And I just couldn't be happier that they traded for him in front of the Giants. Sorry, guys. Sorry to throw that in.
Liam's got to get over. He's got to pick a new team, man.
Might have to, but
I did all right picking the Super Bowl this year, guys. I did all right. I got one wrong. A little New York bias crept in the semis. I apologize. I'm sorry. I had Kansas City. I had the Bengals. I had the Eagles, and I had the Giants. I just thought the Giants were going to get one over on the Eagles. I guess it's got to be Mahomie and the crew. That's fine. That's fine. We'll let that happen.
Yeah. One last DK trend I would add would be, surprisingly, 3 of the last 4 years, there's been a pass catcher at the captain spot. So I was shocked to hear that. And that's pretty sharp to do something like that already off the bat. You're yeah, Liam. Already off the bat, you're kind of putting yourself in a lower percentile. And like I said before, don't choose both quarterbacks would be my advice. Yeah, continue.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, Liam, give us your thoughts on the receivers, man. And for people who don't know, Liam picks fights. That's what he does predominantly. He was about 100 units profit in the UFC last year, but a great thought partner on other sports as well. I mean, I talk to this guy every single week prior to the main slate on Sunday. We just look at markets. We go back and forth. Liam joked that when we're on the same page, we have a very, very high success rate, but it's very true. If I feel good about something with the football analysis and he feels good with the market read, it's usually a spot where we end up firing at least for a whole unit. So Liam, that being said, the receivers, man, what are you looking at in this spot?
Yeah, so I don't have a ton here, except to say that I think that the Kansas City receivers are being a little bit underlooked here. Reason being, most of them have been on the injury reports for the practices this week and that kind of thing. I'm talking most specifically about Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster, guys that are still available at a little over 3-1, 4-1 to score a touchdown on some markets. I'll let you guys do your own research, but point being, most markets have already moved this to plus 245, plus 250 with indications that they're going to play. Patrick Mahomes needs to throw to somebody, right? He's not going to throw to nobody. So the idea that he's not going to hit one of these guys is a little bit far-fetched. I think especially when you look at how they're going to approach Kansas City defensively, they're going to look to stop Travis Kelce. He's the biggest weapon. He's the guy that Patrick wants to hit with every pass. So I think when you look to other tight ends, that's probably a wise move, but also the guys that are going to play wide receiver, somebody's got to score. And I think that those are 2 good options, especially if you're getting over 3.5 to 1 on those kind of guys. It's a good number.
Yeah, great stuff. Me personally, I'm going big or going home with AJ Brown in this spot. I think if you're not betting Jalen Hurts to win MVP with the Eagles, I think Brown is the next most logical spot to take here. He's had 3 games this year with at least 150 receiving yards. He had 156 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in 1 game earlier this season. Again, we mentioned earlier in the show, Kansas City, number 1 defense in the league when they can get pressure on the opposing quarterback. They're number 32, dead last in the league when they're not able to get pressure on the opposing quarterback. They're facing an elite Philadelphia offensive line. It could be an opportunity, again, for Brown to take some shots down the field. As Jon Jon mentioned, Smith is on the other side of that as well. So it's not an automatic that ball's going Brown's way. But I do like Brown. He's proven this year that he can have those big statistical outlier type of games. And if you look at the receivers who have won this award and have taken it away from their quarterback, they've almost always had multiple touchdowns, or they've had just a ridiculous amount of receiving yards. I'm talking like 120 plus in a game. Brown has proven that he can do that. I like his chances in this spot, especially with how much he talked prior to the NFC Championship game. You saw the first drive, they went right after him. Yeah, they went right after him, right? And I saw on FanDuel as well, Philadelphia Eagles first drive, player to catch a pass, A.J. Brown is plus 130. So if you think A.J. Brown's getting involved early at plus 130, I think you could make far worse wagers on this game, in my opinion. I think he's going to be involved quite frequently, and I would not be surprised if they just continue to try to exploit that matchup throughout the game.
Yeah, I expect some quick screen passes all around from the Eagles. That's why I'd be worried about Quez. I've heard some takes on the Quez Watkins under receptions, 1.5, which hits at a high clip, but something scares me about those quick little receptions that gain 0 yards. So maybe hit the under 12.5 yards instead of the under 2.5 receptions, just in case.
Well, like you said with Quez, and I personally like Quez a lot in this spot as well. If you're going with the over, if you're trying to target an over with Quez, personally, I think you take the yards, right? Because he could be a deep threat. He could get 11 yards on one catch. So I don't want to risk him having 2 catches in this spot.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather try to win that ticket with just one go big or go home type of play design. But I think if you are fading him, at least me personally, I would rather have that under 1.5 receptions because of what you said. You try to hit him with a quick screen pass, and then he gets targeted, hit behind the line of scrimmage. Maybe he does get like a quick ball over the middle or something like that. But what do you think? I mean, like if you're like, I know you're on Quez, you think he's going to have a good game, but if people disagree with you, they want to fade him, which way do you think is the most intelligent to fade?
Yeah, I mean, he's on the field, and that's the goal. That's what you need to get the ball. So he'll have the snaps and the opportunities, and it's not that Hurts isn't throwing him the ball. Like you said, he tends to run down the field and look for big plays. And like I said, 44-1 first touchdown is very interesting. And at 1.4K for DraftKings is very lucrative choice there. And I will definitely have some exposure with Quez on my lineups for sure. As well as I like you said, I think the over yards is a good play.
Yep.
And I would even be on the over receptions, but that's just me. But if you think he won't do well, I'd just be a little bit worried of a quick screen to kill you in the last second.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Guys, let's jump into the tight ends, the other pass catchers, right? So some big names with Travis Kelce, with Dallas Goedert, but also some other names that we might need to be paying attention to with guys like Noah Gray. Liam, I know you're a big Noah Gray fan. Is this a spot that you're targeting him? The Eagles are very tough on tight ends. Chiefs love to send 2 tight ends out there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when you have a depleted receiving core, you have to turn your attention to the tight ends, and especially in this game, I actually feel like it's one of the most clear bets on the board. Like for me, this is one of the standout plays. Plus 850 on Noah Gray to get a touchdown. It's just ridiculous. He's probably one of the top 3 receiving targets that's going to be on the field, active and healthy during the game. So for me, that's a number like that you just can't make from mathematics, right? That's a number from name recognition. That's a number from how people approach these things, that they're going to look for stars that they know. Whereas Noah Gray, he's not available on every play. He's oftentimes on the blocking assignments and things like that. But when he's broken free, he's gotten touchdowns. He's been effective. He's caught long passes during the season as well. So I think he's shown he can be a threat in multiple departments. And I think that at plus 4,100, it's a ludicrous first touchdown market as well. I thought that Pacheco at plus 900, a little bit more safe, a little bit more realistic. When you look at the Chiefs, oftentimes they're in goal line situations. So they're literally within 10 yards and they've got to find a way to score from there. Oftentimes that takes the form of short passes. that could be a running back like Pacheco. That could easily be a tall guy that can have hands, that can get up there and make a play. And I think that that's Noah Gray. So plus 4,100, I like that as well. Are you noticing a theme with my bets, boys? I like the Chiefs this weekend.
I mean, similar with Quez. I mean, Gray, he's on the field, I want to say, over 50% of the time. And if I were the Eagles, I would double, maybe triple Kelsey. So I would let Gray beat me for sure, which could give him some target share outside of the red zone, which is usually where he dominates. So you might be able to get some extra receptions, a little bit more yardage for him, as well as I think he's kind of due for a touchdown. And especially with all the focus on Kelsey, you got to think wide open, Gray, touchdown. I'm hoping for a similar thing with Stoll. 70-1 first touchdown. That's Goddard touchdown. Oh, wait, that's Stoll. Like everyone, trying to figure out who this guy is. But I'm also taking him first Philly touchdown. So maybe Pacheco could score the first, and then Stoll can have the first Eagles touchdown. Similar to just snaps, you gotta bet on the opportunities.
Yeah, well, and like we're talking about too, the Super Bowl is the final game of the season, right? All these plays that you've been hiding all year, that you've been practicing for these situations, you're going to come out, and there's a high likelihood that you're going to try to surprise people, right? We've seen in past Super Bowls, so a random guy, right, didn't even know he's on the roster unless you're a diehard local fan of that specific team, come out and find the end zone or make a big name for himself in a big game like this. So I'm with you guys. I think Noah Gray is a sneaky guy. Like Quez and Noah Gray, I think, are my two favorites as well. If you're looking at sort of like off the cuff, not big names here. Some information on Noah Gray. He has had only one target in each of his last 5 games. He did have 3 targets each in week 14 and week 15. But even though he hasn't been targeted a ton, he has managed to go over double digits in receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games, being week 17, week 18, that divisional round game against Jacksonville. And then he only had 4 yards last week. But again, Noah Gray, he's going to have to be utilized in some capacity, whether it's as a pass blocker against this ferocious Eagles pass rush, or he's going to have to be used. I mean, one of the most popular plays in the league, right? The tight end sneaks out of there and everybody forgets about him. And especially if you got a guy like Travis Kelce and you're in that goal-to-goal situation, is it like it's going to open up an opportunity for a hobbled Mahomes to make a really gutsy run to the end zone, or maybe a guy like Noah Gray or somebody else down ballot on the depth chart to get open for a pass or a touchdown or something like that. So I would not talk anybody off of any of those long shots that you guys talked about. I think especially the first touchdown for Noah Gray. I mean, my God, dude, it's like if you're going to surprise somebody off the bat, you get down to go, and everybody's like Kelsey. Oh, Noah Gray just scored that touchdown. So I don't hate it at all. I think if you got some fun money laying around, you're just betting it on the game, I think that'd be a great spot to target.
I just think it's definitely a must bet for Gray. He's also 1.2K at DraftKings, which could be a difference maker there as well. Quez 1.4, as the commish stated. Those are 2 just great options if you're just trying to be a little sneaky. But
we're trying to be plenty sneaky in the Super Bowl.
We're trying to be super sneaky, yeah. And I think Stoll is also pretty good himself. I was on the Calcaterra train, but he just doesn't get enough PT, so we gotta change course there. So yeah,
will be interesting for sure. Anything else you guys have on the tight ends?
Let me see.
That's all for me. I think I mentioned before the stream that I thought that Travis Kelce, if he's going to break free and like win the MVP or something like that, he's probably going to need to have multiple touchdowns. So, I think if you're looking at plus 500 on the multi-touchdown market or Travis Kelce MVP odds, the one danger is that, obviously Mahomes has to throw it to him if he's going to be getting the touchdown. So that's the danger, is that it could still promote Mahomes getting it. But if Mahomes throws for, 2 or 3 touchdowns, or let's say he goes out in the third quarter or something, dire situations.
Or just has a couple of picks, right? Because we saw last year Matthew Stafford throw a couple of picks And it made it a little bit more likely that a guy like Cooper Kupp, who had the narrative from the season with, with all the receptions, with all the receiving yards, to give it to a guy like that who was sort of the media darling of the regular season.
Or like a guy whose brother is also in the game, and like they've been talking about the Kelsey Bowl, and they started a podcast before the season and all this shit. Yeah, I think that would be another factor to consider. So among guys that are getting MVP votes from the Chiefs that aren't named Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce having a breakout game is about the only other way that you could envision that going a different way.
Just similar to like Miles Sanders, I feel like Kelce and him might just get all the tough yards, those hard pound for pound yards getting down the field. That's when Sanders gets a lot of his production. And I do worry that by the time they get to the end zone, there might be, other benefactors in stealing touchdowns from those players in particular. And I think just it's a valid risk. And so be careful with that.
Definitely. Well, guys, we've covered the quarterbacks, we've covered the running backs, we've covered the pass catchers, both at receiver and tight end. Defense, novelty bets, anything that you guys are targeting in those markets, someone specific to get an interception, anyone that you see being an impact player on the defensive side of the ball that you want to highlight?
I'll kick that one over to Jon Jon first for sure.
All right, fair. I have some defensive props. We can start there. I'm not sure how into people are on defense, but for some novelty fun props, I have 2-point conversion attempt. Yes, minus 115. I think both teams are aggressive. All it takes is one missed extra point or a field goal for a coach to lose complete confidence in their kicker.
And maybe not even, right? Just Sirianni go down the field, and he just wants to go up 8-0, just because he needs a wheelbarrow for his Nuggets, and he just wants to make a statement on that opening drive that he's there, and he's not playing around, right? I mean, that would not surprise me in the slightest to see him do something uber aggressive like that.
Yeah, they're going to be running like crazy snap counts and trying to get them off sides, and then just quickly go for 2. I mean, we saw Hurts run a QB sneak like 3 yards out, and then they ran it again, 3rd down, and he scored. But if he didn't, you got to imagine they were about to line that up again. So it's going to be an interesting game, all sorts of fun stuff. Oh, and then I guess halftime show. I'm only bringing this up because of my success last year, but my girl Rihanna, she hasn't been on tour since 2016, so maybe the set lists are kind of out of date. There could be some value there, but I will not be the one to advise you guys what to bet.
Go find someone near the stadium to give you a tip, and then don't tell anybody about it. Don't go on YouTube. Don't do a show.
Exactly.
And just keep that bet to yourself, and then go make yourself a lot of money if you go figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise they'll change the set list on you.
Last year I had a friend of mine send me a video of he was outside of the stadium, and I don't know if it was his video or if it was somebody else's video. I don't remember, but he sent me a video of someone outside the stadium recording the length of the rehearsal, and he sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh, absolutely! Like we'll bet that right away." And then like a few hours later, all the books had taken down the over under for the time on the national anthem. I haven't even seen that offer this year. Probably for good. They know there's going to be everybody that they can near the stadium trying to replicate that success this season. So, I mean, those are fun. But
I kind of lucked out because the next episode, I think Bavada thought that was a Snoop Dogg song. So I got a little value there last year, unfortunately.
Good stuff. Liam, what about you, man? I know you're not averse to long shot bets whatsoever. Do you have something that you're looking at here, whether it's a novelty prop or just anything else in the game that you haven't already mentioned?
Yeah, for sure. I would mention a couple defensive props that I thought were a little bit interesting. Fletcher Cox to record a sack is plus 200, which I find to be just a little bit wide. They're definitely respecting a lot of the other Eagles pass rushers, but just Fletcher Cox kind of outlier odds at plus 200, highest odds of anybody in the game to get a sack. And I don't think that that's accurate in terms of my perception of the players. In addition, Chris Jones to record a sack is just over chalk. It's like minus 110. I think that that's a fine number. I think that he is one of the more dangerous rushers for Kansas City. He's extremely intentional. He took a lot of pride in the defense last week. He was there on every play, I felt like. So I feel like Chris Jones going to record at least 1 sack. He's plus 250 to record 2. That's a little bit asking much, but I think certainly 1 sack for Chris Jones is going to take place. So I think Jalen Hurts, he knows who to watch out for, and it's Chris Jones in that backfield. And I think Chris Jones gets home at least 1 time.
He also has an interesting prize pick of over 3.5 tackles plus assists, which is pretty interesting. And then I like Darius Slay over 3.5 tackles and assists. As of now, CJ Gardner Johnson, I feel like his price is kind of just overdone. It's 6.5, 5.5. I just think that's not bettable. So it's better off to take Slay, play that soft zone, allow a couple receptions, and make an easy tackle. And also Reddick, my boy Reddick, Hassan, is over 3.5 tackles and assists. And, I mean, I think Fletcher Cox plus 200 is just a great play. And I expect him to retire after we win the Super Bowl.
Don't be counting your chickens yet, man. But I got a question for you guys. These are not necessarily long shots, but you're talking about sack props and things like that, and I'm sitting here looking at the market. And I'm on FanDuel right now. We have total sacks by the Eagles over under 2.5. Again, they've had an elite pass rush all season. Curious if either one of you have any thoughts on that. And then quarterback to be sacked first. Hurts is at plus 102 and Mahomes is at minus 128. I'm a little bit surprised. I would have thought that would be a little bit more juiced towards Patrick Mahomes, just given
big facts. Yeah.
Just given the fact that KC has they have a great pass blocking offensive line. Mahomes is getting the ball out quick, especially the last couple of weeks, but he's not mobile in the same way Hurts is. I mean, KC might be able to get a lot of pressure on Hurts, but then Hurts be able to escape and at least throw that ball away in a way that Mahomes might not be able to, depending on that mobility early in the game. So if either one of you have any thoughts on those two props, I'd be curious.
I mean, Mahomes, Hurts displayed just a great ability to feed the check down, I think, from that Niners defense. And, I expect him to – he's got great awareness. He feels the pocket pressure so well, and he's not afraid to get rid of the ball, especially when, defenses are worried about over-the-top AJ and just playing some deep coverage, preventing the deep pass, and just leaving room for the running back to just get a little quick dump off. So I think that's actually a really interesting play on Mahomes getting the first sack. If that's the kind of stuff you're looking for, that seems pretty valuable. What's the line on that?
What'd you say?
What's the line on that one?
You can get Mahomes to be sacked first is minus 128. He was sacked 3 times last week. He had down the stretch in the season was not sacked a ton. 1-0, 2-2, 1-0-2 going into the postseason, and then wasn't sacked against Jacksonville. And then, like I said, 3 times last week. Hurts has taken a surprising amount of sacks for a guy with his mobility. Maybe, and again, I don't watch the Eagles as close as I've watched the Chiefs. I just have more of an affinity for the Chiefs. So maybe this is my own negligence or bias factoring in here. Hurts did take 38 sacks during the regular season, and Mahomes took 26. So maybe that's not as crazy of a line as I thought when I first saw it. But, I mean, Jon, if you have any other thoughts, or Liam, if you have any thoughts on that.
I just think, like I said, the last 10 games for the Chiefs, I don't believe they've really gone against elite defenses, coaching, nothing like the Eagles that they're about to see. No, I'm just kidding. But the Chiefs, I think they're just overrated. They spent a lot of their offseason money on the O-line rather than, replacing Tyreek Hill. And I think it was helpful, but I think it would just a little slightly overrated. And it didn't look that great last week, that's for sure, against that Bengals D-line. And I just think the Eagles defense as a whole is just arguably the most underrated defense of all time. This could literally be a blowout, and Mahomes could have his second Super Bowl blowout, and whatever that would mean for his legacy is.
Are you telling me Eagles alt line? I'll pull it up right now. I'll bet it's high.
I mean, the differential is 69-14 for the last 2 games. So it's
All
definitely.
right, I gotta stop the slander. My guys over in Cincinnati put together a damn good team. They've got an elite top 5 quarterback in the NFL, no doubt about it, in Joe Burrow. And they went out there and they got outplayed in parts, and they got out refereed in other parts by the Chiefs. And here's what I'll tell you. I think that the referees are coming with the Chiefs. I think on top of that fact, we're looking at a team that has the best quarterback in the NFL. He just threw for 5,000 plus passing yards. He cemented himself as an all-time passer. He's very difficult to replicate. Nobody else is doing that. So I think when you talk about who the Eagles have been playing, Brock Purdy goes down in the early going. I mean, there's nothing they could do about that. They did their job. They beat the shit out of a team that they should have beat. They did the same thing against the New York Football Giants. All right, I have my biases, but just team for team, skill for skill, position for position, Eagles are a far better team. I think that the Eagles might be a slightly better team than the Kansas City Chiefs. But then you talk about winning experience. You talk about a team that's been at this level, that's played in a lot of these big games, that's played a lot of big games with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, with different guys as key pieces, and they've still gotten the win when it mattered. Hasn't always happened. They've lost the Super Bowl too, but I think this is a big game for his legacy. I think Mahomes is coming to play, and I don't think one injury is going to stop that either. I truly don't believe that. I think he's going to ball the fuck out. I think he's going to have a great game. So that doesn't mean that they're going to win the game. They're still playing a great team. That's why I expect the game to go over. That's why I expect it to be highly competitive, not a point spread type of game. But I think that betting against Patrick Mahomes is hard to do. When you got 2 guys that are admittedly banged up, because that's the other part that we're not talking about as much, is that Jalen Hurts has said, I'm a little banged up. I can't make the throws with the same accuracy as what Kamish is saying. That's a problem, right? When you're talking about Kansas City, they're not chumps on defense either. They can play good defense. Their offense struggled at various points throughout this season, and people forget. But what did they do? They played enough efficient offense that they score on almost every possession, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. They score very, very often. And on top of that, they played very good defense. They would force people to kick field goals more often than not. So they limit the point exposure at times from the other side. That's why they weren't winning on the point spread. Their ATS numbers are terrible. But when it comes down to who wins the game, Kansas City Chiefs are a hard team to beat. So plus money next to Patrick Mahomes' name, it's got my attention big time.
Could not.
No downfield threat though. It's just we'll see.
We'll see, man. We've seen some downfield threats make their debut in the Super Bowl before. So
Sky Moore, look out.
Hey, but I will say, man, if Sky Moore ends up beating the Philadelphia Eagles, Jon, you guys got to fold up the organization. You got to retire. You got to sell the team. You got to you got to put it in a different market. Philadelphia cannot
new wall art. I'm going to commission new wall art if that happens.
You cannot come back to Philly next fall if Sky Moore goes for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against you guys. I can't see Sky Moore being the guy to do it. I'm throwing a little shade because he cost me pretty bad against the Colts early in the season in a game that seemed to be having some odd things happen within it. But guys, we've been on here for over an hour. Also, congratulations, LeBron James did in fact break the NBA scoring record near the end of the third quarter. I know Jon Jon's out in LA. Congratulations to him, great career, obviously. But before we get out of here, final score predictions. We'll just go around the table. Liam, you're up first. Chiefs, what's going to be the final score?
Oh boy. Let's say 26-25 Kansas City.
That must be what are those
called? Scoregami, baby. Yeah, Scoregami.
Yeah, that's got to be one of
them. Hey, you can bet Scoregami on FanDuel.
You should go with that.
You can bet. I saw it earlier. Will there be a Scoregami? 18-1, yes. So if you're thinking 26-25, Liam, I don't know for a fact that's a Scoregami. We'll have to look it up. But
that bootleg leak script, I guarantee you it's not landing 37-34. If it lands anything, it'll be not that.
Don't miss the extra point. It'll be 36-34.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's the real one.
It'll actually be 37.
You got it, guys. And then you can already count the eggs in a patch. The Eagles did it.
I think you meant 37-24 Philly, or that's actually 190-1, and then the other one I got 34-28 125-1. And we got Hurts MVP. I
I'm
would
hearing
also
over.
Well, one thing I would, over. Under Chief team total. No, just kidding. I do have some best plays as well as one more ridiculous one of MVP Gardner Minshew 100-1. Nothing sounds more Philly than the two QB MVPs being Nick Foles and Gardner Minshew. No statue would fit better next to Foles than Minshew. So I think that's honestly kind of worth a shot other than some other non-QB position. And then best bet for me would be definitely first half team total, 12.5 for the Eagles. And definitely Hurts first half TD plus 200. These are auto bets for me. Yeah. What about y'all?
Liam, you got a best bet? A one bet can't miss. If other than I see Jake's telling your 26-25 final score. What's your other best bet of the game?
I mean, if I had to put a best bet down, I would probably go Mahomes over 1.5 touchdowns at minus 200. It's a little chalky. I just can't envision a world in which he doesn't get 2 touchdowns in this game. Gonna need it. Gonna need it to get anywhere close to that team total. Gonna need it to get anywhere close to the overall total. And he's got some threats. So I think that that would be my favorite play. But in terms of value, over 2.5 plus 180, mispriced. And favorite touchdown scorer, Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's going to get opportunities through the air. I think he might get opportunities on the ground as well. At a plus 140 number, don't hate that. But if you're looking for something a little bit longer odds, my favorite play for value is Noah Gray, anytime touchdown, plus 850. I think it's a complete misprice. Plus 500, plus 400 would be more appropriate.
For me, I'm definitely going to sprinkle on the Noah Gray. I'm probably going to take him either on the receptions or the receiving yards. But in terms of a best bet for the game, I really don't see how A.J. Brown does not get in the end zone in this spot, especially if KC struggles to get pressure on Hurts. A.J. Brown's too big. He's too strong. He talks too much. When guys talk that much, you can't come out and lay a dud, especially in front of a national audience like this. So I think he has a big game. If he doesn't score, I think he's going to have a ton of yards. So I think invest in A.J. Brown however you see fit. Personally, I think the touchdown is going to be a great way to look. In terms of a final score, I think I do like the Eagles in this spot. As of right now, this is subject to change after final injury reports, after seeing what happens over the next 3-4 days. But I do think as of right now, if I had to put it out there, I'm looking at 27-21 Philadelphia Eagles. I apologize, Liam. I don't want the Eagles to win, so I would be happy to be wrong in this spot.
Hey, I'm just saying, FanDuel doesn't offer that 26-25 scoregami. I'm just saying, look into it.
Were any of you able to find Eagles run the exact same Philly special again?
I have not
What
seen
would those
that.
prop odds be? That'd be so epic. Oh, my God. Like the exact same play to Hurts. That'd be amazing. Someone come up with a line for that one.
I was going to say, you got to find Bet Openly on that one. I'm sure somebody will book it.
I will take that. I'll take whoever. Yeah, someone put a line down. I'll sprinkle right there.
Well, guys, appreciate, again, Liam, I know it's super late for you. I know you're a night owl, so this is no big deal for you to be up this late, but appreciate you jumping on the channel, just giving some people some early week content right in the middle of LeBron making NBA history. Of course, hopefully there'll be a good watch back on this. Jon Jon as well. Great to have you on.
Thank you.
I never met Jon Jon before. Liam connected us, so grateful as well to Liam for making this connection. I'm sure we'll have Jon Jon back going forward. Great information. Hopefully, for your sake, the Eagles come out of here with a win. But again, guys, a ton of great bets, ton of great information. We'll make sure in the next day or so to go through and timestamp things to make this a little bit easier to search throughout the video if you want to cut to certain markets. Other than that, man, any closing thoughts, Jon Jon, and then we'll go Liam?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we can do a combine or NFL draft. We got some things going on, but maybe this could be the start of a beautiful thing. And thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Tough.
And tail responsibly.
Yes. We should, that should just be a general disclaimer. We should just say that at the front of every show. Liam, what about you, man?
Absolutely.
I'm not
So I just want to say, guys, make sure you go follow Jon Jon on social media. I found Jon Jon just by being a person that's constantly on gambling Twitter. I see what people are posting, and I saw a lot of really sharp anytime touchdown bets. I don't really focus on the broader NFL market. It's one of the most efficient markets in the world, very difficult to beat. So I let my guy like the commish figure out all the difficult intricacies there. I figure out mixed martial arts, and I look at anytime touchdown props. So I discovered his work by saying, wow, we keep lining up on a lot of these anytime touchdowns because he is an originator. He's picking things that he thinks are going to happen. And then I am looking at markets and saying, wow, this number doesn't make any sense. Everywhere else has already moved it. So I'm taking a market-based approach and getting the same picks because guys that are sharp originators are moving those numbers. So just something to keep in mind, but wanted to shout him out. Make sure you guys go follow and support. Make sure if you're not already, subscribe to my guy Kamish. He drops very good knowledge for player props on a daily basis, and he's putting on great shows like this. I'm always happy to be a part of it. So find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights, and I'm talking fights the rest of the week. UFC 284, big card, big opportunities, and already got one bet live in the Lab VIP Discord, and going to be many more throughout the week. So excited about that. Excited about this conversation. Hopefully we'll do it again, and appreciate you, gentlemen. Great talk.
Yeah, if you want the full slate, please slide into the DMs, and I'll send it your way. Appreciate it, guys.
Yep. And like Liam said, give him a follow, give Jon Jon a follow. If you want, give me a follow, subscribe as well. We always appreciate the support. It's a new channel. Every single day we're taking NBA player props and putting it out every day at noon. We've been profitable 14 of the last 18 days. No BS, no BS ads. We're not going to sit here and promo for 10 minutes before we get into the player props. I literally just wake up, pick out 3, come on here, and we do a quick show. So if that's something that interests you guys, again, please subscribe, share with your friends. It's a great way to support us and a great way to, if you like our content, to keep us coming back. Also, just wanted to shout out Jake, and I know we had Evan in here for a while as well. A couple of guys who are just fantastic individuals. Have interacted with them in DMs. They support a lot of our work. So I just wanted to shout you guys out. Appreciate you jumping on here for over an hour. And I don't know if you were multitasking, if you had LeBron on your TV and us on your phone or your iPad, but appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight.
And let us know who has the better beard between Liam and myself.
Any questions, comments, concerns, guys, drop them underneath this video. We will be looking at it throughout the week. And if there's enough questions, enough interest, hey, maybe we'll hop back on later in the week as well and kind of circle around for some of those. Yep. So thank you guys for the support. Make sure you share it with a friend if you enjoyed it as well.
Awesome.
Go Birds.
See you guys.